The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. This is Tina from mParks. On the panel today, we're going to have Clay lead us through a few questions that were predetermined, and then we'll open it up for other questions. If you'd like, all attendees are on listen-only mode, but you will have the ability to ask questions in the question box or communicate in the chat box, and I'll moderate those and send them over to Clay. There's going to be some situations where the panel is going to want to hear from you. So if you are able to, you can raise your hand on the GoToWebinar panel, and then we can give you speaking access. If you're on the phone and not on the computer, I do not know if we'll be able to give you that access. So if you're able to switch over to a computer, that could be helpful. This webinar will be recorded and it will be posted to the mParks website. With that, I think I can turn it over to Clay.
Okay, thanks, Tina, and thanks everybody who's on the phone, who's on their computers. Those of us that have been or that are quote unquote on the panel have been talking for about the last half an hour and having some good conversations. We'll try to lead you through some predetermined questions, as Tina already said, to give these folks on here a little bit of an opportunity to expand on what they're doing in their communities. I'm going to introduce everybody real quick on the panel. First of all, just on the phone, she's not on the screen, is Sue-Ann Kopmeyer, and I want to thank Sue-Ann for helping put this together. Sue-Ann is the director up in Isabella County, Parks and Recreation. We also have Jim Dunleavy from Oakland County, Kyle Lewis from Jackson County, Jeff Abel from Mecosta County, Nick Smith up in Newaygo County, Kendall Klingel-Smith way up in Petoskey, where he just said it's snowing a little bit. And then later on in the call, we'll also be joined by a couple gentlemen from the DNR, Scott Pratt and Jason Fleming. They're in a meeting right now, but they plan on attending a little bit later into the meeting. So for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Clay Summers. I'm the director of the Michigan Recreation Parks Association. One thing we've been trying to do is provide these webinars to the membership to give you some information about what specific situations you're dealing with. These gentlemen and ladies on the phone and on the computer right now do not have all the answers to all these questions. As a matter of fact, they're looking for some other folks to potentially join in if you have answers to some of these questions. As much as anything else, just trying to network and gather as much information about campgrounds as we possibly can as we're nearing the season to open and all of that. So without any further ado, I'm going to start out and just start asking a few questions here, and then Tina can forward me questions from the audience. So, and guys, we'll just kind of go in order across our screen here. So I'm going to go with Jeff first. He's in my top left. Jeff, can you talk just a little bit about what preseason things you're addressing, kind of what you're doing right now to prepare yourself for an opening? I mean, have you been in the situation where it's been business as normal, or how are you proceeding up in Mecosta County as preparing for the opener?
Well, we're certainly not business as normal, but we are doing all of the minimum things to try to prepare ourselves for a fast opening when we are allowed to do so. The biggest couple things on our end is ensuring that water testing and those obligations through health department are being done, and we are continuing to do those things. The other huge one on our end is the hiring of all of our seasonal employees and getting them into the parks. And we are continuing to do phone interviews, Zoom interviews. We're emailing out personnel packets and then having those folks mail back in applications and all their W-2s and W-4s or all their different pre-employment paperwork that we need so that we can get that to our HR folks and start getting them set up in payroll. So when we do have a definitive start date, we can bring some of those people on right away.
Can you talk, or can anybody else talk to the challenge that it's been in that staffing procedure as far as sending emails and getting responses and getting information back from potential employees? Can you expand on that, or does anybody else want to take a shot at that piece of what Jeff was talking about?
On our end, it's definitely a much slower, much more drawn out process, and we have to, you have to work with a lot of these folks may not even have internet access, so we're having to mail them packets and have it mailed back to us. Or, there's a lot of challenges that are slowing things down, but we're trying to prepare to bring people in as quickly as possible.
Has anybody else found a different way to go about that, or anything to add on to what Jeff's talking about from an employee onboarding perspective?
I think we've all been doing things similar to what Jeff's been doing. We started out doing a lot of phone interviews. Before they put the lockdown on us, we were able to have employees come in and pick up their paperwork. So a lot of that was being put in place. Our staff have done a great job finding out who's coming back. So things like that have been put in place. And I mentioned earlier before everybody got to the session that we have staff that are coming from out of state. So there's definitely procedures that have been put in place for that, forms and then questions that they're asked. So there's a lot of steps that are going into the process of just being able to hire staff and kind of knowing where we're at. They were doing a lot of work before this to get the information. I think we started putting out applications in early February, and then we were able to make a lot of calls and started the process, but everything's been kind of put on hold now.
In Newaygo County, luckily we usually start our hiring process a lot earlier in the year. So thankfully all of our employees were background checked and drug tested and approved to start before this first stay-at-home order was implemented. So right now we're just kind of waiting for the go-ahead from the state to start work on May 1st. If that stays the way it is now, it may not. So we're in a good position right now. But I have a lot of questions every other day as when can we start? And it's frustrating to them, and we understand that. So it's been difficult.
Yeah.
Clay,
Okay.
this is Jim Dunleavy again. Hey,
Yep.
something that we did too, our staff had came up with a plan on a lot of things that we have open. So a lot of things have been postponed to open later. So like a lot of our features, like our boat rentals and our bike rentals and all that kind of stuff actually are going to be postponed until the 4th of July weekend. So we looked at everything that we do, including even our concession operations. In fact, at this time, we're looking at maybe not even having concession operations. So everything is kind of like phasing in as we go into the summer. But that also helps us to be able to not have to have as many staff too. So we don't have to bring as many on. So we'll just be doing, the essential things.
Right. I guess some of the biggest questions people are going to be asking or starting to ask is have you received any guidance at this point or anything at all from the state? And this is where I hope when Scott Pratt jumps on the phone, he might be able to give us some updates. But anybody getting any updates from the state or your local health officials on what campground amenities, if any, you will be able to open after the stay-at-home order is lifted? If you've heard anything or getting anything from your local health department at all, Kendall up in Petoskey, from a city perspective, anything up there from your locals on what you may or may not be able to do?
Well, we're trying to conform to the executive order and maintaining outdoor recreation space for safe and sanitary use. It's hard to justify the campground under that right now. I mean, for our standpoint, we don't really, outside of a handful of our long-term renters, we don't really start to ramp up business until closer to Memorial Day in early June. So ideally, we're gonna have enough time to put things together. Once the executive order is lifted, which hopefully will be very soon. If that's lifted in May, I think we'll be okay. It isn't going to be perfect, but we'll be able to. I have staff hired, and most of them are coming back from last year, and most of them are local, and most of them are retired. So they're chomping at the bit, ready to go. And You know, our operation is relatively small in comparison to some of the other, my other colleagues on the panel. I mean, we only have 74 sites, and it's a fairly contained property, so we can get a handful of people out there and do what we need to do. But no, there's still a lot of unanswered questions in terms of what we can be, what can we be doing now, which for us is really nothing.
Right. Okay. Anybody else hearing anything, anything for the good of the group as far as what you're hearing from your local health department, or anything that might be helpful to the people on the phone?
I don't have anything helpful yet, but
Go ahead. Go ahead, Sue Ann.
I just want to say something about, you know, we do have a pretty conservative approach here in Isabella, and I don't know if other people out there listening are doing the same, but we have not been able to do any hiring of new people until further notice. So we can still do interviews, but we can't hire, like there's no processing of paperwork or background checks, and just for the matter that we have a small staff as well that you know, do things for the whole county. So that's something we're dealing with, that even if the order, you know, when we go back to work, all of that, you know, background checks, and you guys were real helpful with, if somebody's from out of state, you know, things that we'll probably need to take further precautions on, will set us back, you know, even further than just being able to have everyone come on board, like Nick was saying, you know, come May 1st if the executive order is lifted. So just an FYI, on our end, we're just taking, you know, we're going to be a little bit slower opening up or having everybody on board, you know, when we open. So.
Great. Thank you. Jim, did you have something to add to that?
it's something hopefully we can share in the near future. We are, Sue Wells is working on scheduling a meeting with our county health department to kind of go through some of those questions. And hopefully that's going to happen this week. So we actually postponed our campground meeting until this Friday. We've been meeting every week with our campground staff and our supervisors and trying to get, you know, plans and outlines and timelines and all that. They've really done a great job on putting all that together, but hopefully we'll get with the health department and then we can share with mParks, and then they can get it out to everyone. So that's kind of where we're at.
Great. Kyle, I'm going to shoot this question at you. I'm not sure if you have an answer at this point yet or not, but just from a communications perspective from the county, how are you guys communicating with your folks that maybe have already pre-registered for campsites? Are you going to be issuing refunds if things don't move in the direction of being able to open on time? Do you have a plan as far as communicating to the public once you're in that position?
Yeah, we are kind of in the same timeline as Kendall and Petoskey. I mean, we don't really typically get fired up until Memorial Day weekend, so we don't really feel too far behind yet. But once we are open and once we have a better idea on what it looks like after the executive order is lifted, you know, right now our standard refund policy is in place, but of course it's not black and white. If somebody's having a hardship or lost their job or something, we would certainly work with them on processing a refund. But so far our communications to the public have more been about what is open in our parks and what's not open. So nothing too specific with our campgrounds yet, just because we're not typically open yet this time of year.
Okay. Anybody else from a communication standpoint, have you launched any sort of yep, go ahead, Jeff.
So we've got a bit of a challenge in communication, and we are typically starting to open. We're affected by the order at this point. We normally open on April 24th with our main parks, and our other parks were all scheduled to open on May 1st, which isn't going to happen now. So we have communicated with all of our reservation holders that were for nightly reservations. We did out a big email blast to let them know that their reservations have been affected by the order at this point. And some are confused as to, well, look, the order would allow us to come in on May 1st, but you're telling me I can't come in until May 14th. Well, we need to communicate that there is a gap there in getting staff in and preparing the parks and ensuring we're meeting all of those demands. But we also have a lot of seasonal campers, so we're a little different in that regard. About 50% of our campsites are seasonal, so we've been offering all of our seasonal campers two different options. We're either prorating their seasonal rate based on the number of dates that they cannot come in. So if the season was 176 days and they miss 14, we're doing the math on that, and they'll be getting a refund. Or they're allowed to cancel at this point with a full refund of their deposits that they've paid, and we're working off wait lists and backfilling those seasonals.
Yeah, same here. Actually, Jeff and I both worked on that together. He's right across Hardy Pond from me, so we said, hey, let's put our heads together and put a plan together. So similar plan on the online reservation side for our non-seasonal campers. We've actually paused online reservations for any date, May 15th or before, just because of the uncertainty with what amenities we may be able to open after the order is lifted. So that was specific to camping cabins. We weren't sure if, even May 1st when the order's lifted, can we use a camping cabin or not? So we paused all those. And then the transients that had reservations that are affected by the order, we're reaching out to them, asking them if they would like to transfer to a later date, or we'll do a refund for them. And we're also prorating, like Jeff said, with the seasonals. So.
Right.
Okay.
Clay. Hey, Clay.
Yeah.
It's Jim Dunleavy. Yeah, I actually read what Nick and Jeff put together. They did a great job on their piece of information that they sent out to their campers. We did something similar with our staff and our public communications staff. They put together a really nice piece that we could send out. We actually did a mass refund this last week, and DJ just texted me and said they got it done on the 10th. So everything's all been refunded up to June 10th. They did a great job putting that together, and we'll share that with you guys too, so you can see what we did and what we sent out. So there's like two parts, a part that we've sent out to all our campers, and also information that was sent out for the people that were refunded. So we'll make sure we share that with you guys.
Great. Kendall?
Yeah, our reservations open on January 1st through our online system, and we have the ability to communicate with anyone who has reserved a campsite from January 1st to today. So a few weeks ago, when this was all going down, we just sent out a mass email to everyone who registered, and just tried to provide them with some comfort that we're planning as business as usual, although there could be some operational things that we will do different pertaining to showers and restrooms and whatnot. And we said if anyone is interested in a refund, please let us know. We will refund your reservation 100%. So it's that helped us, knowing just through the online system, knowing how many people we had in the campground, what dates they're in the campground, and again, we don't really start getting ramped up until the end of May anyway. So it hasn't been a significant refund request yet. Now if this order extends, then this is an entirely different conversation. But we've tried to communicate as we have with our marina clientele, just to let people know that this is what our plans are moving forward.
Okay. We do have a comment on the chat box from Jason Spiller at Camp Dearborn. Is this a refund for all? Yeah.
Can you hear me? This is Jason anyways.
Hey,
yes,
Jay,
we can hear you.
Go ahead.
So I'll just tell you what we're doing at Camp Dearborn, because we're a little bit unique since we have over 1,000 sites. We're issuing refunds for anybody full hookup, primitive, and electric starting May 1st when our campground opens till May 15th. So the 14th they'll get a refund, the 15th they'll stay, very similar to what the state parks are doing. As far as if you have a reservation from the 13th to the 20th, you're getting refunded 2 nights. We have 117 military style tents and 45 cabins. They're going to be held off to the 22nd of May. And our 692 seasonal sites are closed until further notice. Their season really doesn't begin until May 16th, and we'll determine if there's going to be refunds. they're not getting the option of rescheduling their sites. We don't have any staff in the office right now. So they're just getting blanket refunds starting actually today. And then we're not taking any kind of phone calls in the office since we're not in there as of right now.
Great, thank you. Appreciate the input. I just got a message. I think Scott, are you on? Scott Pratt? Scott, can you hear us? Okay, I thought Scott had joined us from the DNR. So I definitely want to get
here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, buddy.
Yep, just logged on. Sorry about being tardy.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Scott Pratt from the DNR is part of the panel as well. He'll just be on the phone. We won't be able to see his smiling face. But Scott, is there anything you can give us an update? I don't know if Jason's on the phone with you, or any updates you can give us from DNR campgrounds, or anything you guys are seeing coming at us that some of our locals may need to be prepared for.
Actually, no, I think we're dealing everything with what everyone else is doing currently right now. We do have, the nice thing we have is we have a CAMIS system, a CRS system that we have, they're out of Ann Arbor. They're doing a lot of our major calls to the campers that were already in the system that reserved. As you know, we're 6 months out. So they were doing refunds by making the phone calls and all that stuff. We did give full refunds to those people before May 15th. As of right now, we're hanging tight on the order itself to see what we're going to do after May 15th. But as of right now, we did downgrade at the time to semi-modern, and then all of a sudden, they're out of the park period right now because it's definitely closed. And our rangers are only doing spot checks right now, going in and going out.
Okay, great. Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Couple other questions we had here. One of them that seems to be coming in quite a bit is, can you speak to a little bit what you're going to do from a maintenance perspective that might be different, specifically in your showers, your restroom, your common areas, or playgrounds, even once the order is lifted? Are you putting in specific maintenance and cleaning guidelines that are over and above what you would have done in the past, even once this is lifted?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak to that, Kendall from Petoskey. You know, I found these disinfectant backpack blowers that have really helped us in terms of cleaning our benches and our restrooms, and it's a fairly efficient process. When it comes to the campground, I'm curious what some of my other colleagues are going to do. You know, I've thought about keeping some disinfectant in the showers. So after people get done using the showers, they just spray them down themselves. We're certainly going to take pay higher attention to the bathroom areas and the surface areas. We don't have the answers for exactly what it is we're going to do, but we know it's going to be something we're going to do a lot different than what we've done in the past. So I'm curious, like everyone else, and I would like, you know, to see what some of my colleagues are talking about and are planning on.
Jeff, go ahead. If you've got a response to that, that'd be great.
Well, a lot of it is as everybody's mentioning, you know, it's talking to our local health departments, and we've got a meeting set up with our local health department sanitarian tomorrow to hopefully maybe get some answers. He's made it seem through some initial emails that, you know, standards are going to somewhat go back to business as usual, but I think all of us are going to take whatever standard they put in and then analyze whether we want to implement additional procedures above and beyond what even they may be dictating to us. We are starting to consider some things already. You know, contact points is the main thing. So camper reservation or campers checking in, we're probably going to close the doors to our offices. We're going to operate out of the windows. We're fortunate that all of our stations have a window at each side. We've bought some USB cord extensions so we can move credit card machines to outside the building, so that we're hoping that campers can swipe their own credit or debit cards and enter their numbers so that we don't have to have them come into the buildings to do that. We're looking at installing hand sanitizer next to our cash drawers so that any staff that are handling cash or do have to have that can immediately sanitize hands. We've looked for keyboard covers to put on top of the keyboards in our offices. So, you know, from a park standpoint, I think the couple positions that are going to have the most contact are your office rangers and your custodians, and those are the folks that we're really trying to ramp up. How do we change our procedures to protect them?
Yeah, and in Newaygo County, I've been working a little bit on some new procedures, some being, you know, instead of riding in vehicles together, maybe one person goes to the destination, the other one meets them there at the beginning of the day instead of riding together from the shop. Also some protective equipment for our staff. I'm working on getting some reusable cloth masks currently, and that may change with if the guidelines change. Maybe we need a little bit more advanced type of mask. Obviously, we can't get those yet. Like Jeff said, kind of retrofitting our park offices and getting ready for how do we keep people out of the office, or if they have to come in, how do we keep them away and keep our staff safe? So that's all kind of stuff we're kind of working on now, and actually ordering thermometers for all of our staff that they're going to take home with them and take their temperature every day before they come to work. There's some guidelines right now from our health department that essential workers are using that I think we can incorporate into our seasonal workforce after this is over, just to be as safe as possible. We don't want to get them sick, and of course we don't want our customers to get sick. So also talked to our chemical supplier. We have a chemical we use, PSQ, that is rated to kill coronavirus and similar type things, and we actually use a foam gun for that, and we foam everything down, let it set, and then rinse it down after that. That's something we already do for our showers, so that's something we're probably going to expand into our restrooms as well. So that looking into a lot of different things like that currently.
Does anyone on the panel have outfitted with touchless everything? Sinks and flushers and, you know, sensor facilities, amenities?
Not yet, but that sounds like a great idea.
Well, we're talking about that with doing some of that to our buildings. I'm not a huge fan of them in the public bathrooms because they can require quite a bit of maintenance, but we have had discussions regarding our restroom area and converting everything into more of a touchless automated you know, system for the users. So again, it's minimizing those contact points that we're all taking a look at.
So I'm curious, because you guys are bringing up things that are costing you additional money at a point where your revenue isn't secured to come in. So how are those conversations going with your commissions and your park commissioners and or city managers? Are you able to get additional funding to put in place to provide some of the stuff which you didn't see ahead of time, which may have been unbudgeted expenses? Is anybody having to rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, from other areas of the budget to get new equipment or supplies, or any of you running into a financial hardship at this point?
Well, I think that's a big thing, especially with Newaygo County, that we're self-funded agency. Whatever we increase in expense for reacting to this, it's going to have to come from somewhere. So maybe limiting how often we mow. I know I've canceled all of our large projects this year that we wanted to do. We're just not doing them in the meantime because we're just not sure how much it's going to cost us in lost revenue or additional expense. So we're just kind of in a holding pattern now for our agency.
Anybody else from a budgeting standpoint starting to hit that pressure point?
Yeah, from the state itself, I can speak a little bit. One thing we're doing currently right now is just making like a critical list, non-critical list, and trying to do a bunch of lists as possible. So whatever takes high priority, then we try to get that submitted. But we're gonna get hit pretty hard because of we're pretty much based on campgrounds, and boating and our ORV and all this other stuff that's currently not open at this time. So the only thing we're doing right now, and I know it's not really a slam dunk response to anyone you guys are looking for, but we're just making different lists that we can actually approve, and then of course high priority all the way down to the low priority, and trying to get those done. But Kendall, it's a great idea on those touch lists, but you know, we're wondering about that as well too without the state parks. But as you know, we're going to have to do a sweep through and try to get all those replaced at the time. But I'm with you. I'm not sure. The more digital stuff you put in, you know, it's more like putting it on the staff. Those they're finicky, you know. So it's one of those where. But no, I'm with you on that. And I think it's moving towards that. Hey Nick, I had a question for you. All that stuff, like the temperature stuff and all that stuff you plan on doing, is that something you're just doing right now due to the current like stay-at-home order? Or is that something you see going forward? And is your HR and all that stuff okay with staff or union okay with like staff getting that type of, you know?
Yeah, we're still working out the details, but basically I'm taking our health department guidelines that they're using for the essential workers currently, and just looking at ways we can implement some of those things in the future. So it's not all finalized yet. We're still working through that. All of our staff's just seasonal. We're not union or anything. But a lot of other hoops we still have to go through, but just looking at what's being implemented now and recommended, and trying to take that to make a plan for the future, because we all know this is going to be around for a while. So I'm just trying to be proactive in that.
No, I think a lot of counties and have went to that during this time frame. I didn't know if it was going to get extended on, if they're doing those like heat sensors and stuff, checking temperatures and all that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you, this is the road less traveled we're on right now. You know, so we're still going through right now how we're going to be doing the cleaning. What are we looking at? What type of procedures are we looking at? Are we going to limit how many people are going into bathrooms at a certain time? You know, are we going to have signage on the outside that says currently used? Then someone can't use it until 15 minutes later or something like that, you know. But I don't know. We're just putting the list together now, trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Scott, that actually walks right into the next question I had is, if the social distancing requirements are going to be recommended and implemented beyond May 1st, how will we handle this? From signage, are we going to put tape on the ground in common areas, or how are we going to manage keeping social distancing in campgrounds enforced? Do you guys have, and Scott, you kind of walked into that, if you want to continue with that thought, have you put any thought into what that looks like?
No, the one unique thing we have, which is a plus and a negative, is a handful of our parks, social distancing can happen and can be done. You get down to some of our southern parks itself with our campgrounds, they're like right on top of each other. So we're looking at possibly, I don't know, you know, we'll ever get to that. It's just talking right now. It's like, do we do every other campsite to spread it out a little bit more? Do we turn more, look at our bathroom spacing, you know, with the markers and stuff like that? Of course, we won't tape down anything, but maybe put some social distancing X's down to make sure people are keeping their distance, and getting rid of some of those maybe social gathering places where we normally had, and maybe keep those extended blocked off, because we really can't have an open green space and then tell people keep your social distancing. You have a full campground, they're all going to go there to play sports and stuff. So there might still be some potential closures within the park to keep that social distancing going. So, but no, it's difficult. I think it's going to be a lot of signage, a lot of directing people on which way to go, certain routes throughout the campground, you know, maybe going one way around instead of multiple ways. So like I said, we're still communicating and talking about that. So it's up in the air. I'd be interested to see what other people have been noodling around.
Any other thoughts in the heads of the panelists, even Sue Ann on the phone, or anybody else, as far as, you know, it's going to be death by sign, which we all as parks managers hate. But I don't see any other way. Is there any other thoughtful or mindfulness ways that you all have thought about once this is lifted, still being able to maintain proper distancing?
Yeah, it makes it hard to, this is Jim Dunleavy, it makes it even hard to even think about opening when you have all those different restrictions and putting people in harm's way. But I think it would be really, really great if Scott, you can share some of that information that the state's putting together on how you're going to be cleaning the restrooms and that kind of stuff. I think that'll be really helpful. And I really like what you're doing, Nick, and kind of looking forward on how you're going to handle your staff coming in too. And maybe there's things I don't know if you've been writing that stuff down or if there's ways to share that with everybody too. And we'll share whatever we get. We can share with mParks and they can share with everyone else. And like I said, we're going to be meeting with the health department to kind of look at ways to clean the bathrooms and showers. I did reach out to the county facilities maintenance, and they shared a little bit of information of what they're doing in the jails and how they're maintaining and cleaning those buildings and showers and that kind of stuff. So I can probably be able to share some of that with everybody too. So hopefully that'll help.
Clay, can mParks kind of be a clearinghouse for this information?
Of course, yeah.
I mean, as we develop policies and as we develop new standards, if we could, email you guys and you can, distribute or decipher or perhaps create a campground area or a special facilities area where some of these best practices can be shared. I think that'd be very helpful.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that's the back end plus to all of this is once we get through these and get some best practices, if you guys can send them to me, we can upload them to the toolkit. We can create a page itself on the website. While we're chatting, there are a couple questions have come in, so I'll shift gears and I'll ask this question. In addition to social distancing measures, I wonder if there are going to be any recommendations on limiting travel to prevent the spread. Has anyone considered having to limit campers to those from their own municipality or county only?
No, and
again, take a shot at that.
Well, I think we're building this plane while we're flying it. So until we get some direction from the health department or any further executive orders, it's really hard to. I mean, there are certainly things we need to consider, but this is a waiting game in terms of what we are going to be able to do this summer, and it's like that for every facility that we operate. So hopefully it doesn't come to because we don't get a whole lot of locals that use our campground.
We don't either.
That would be worst case scenario.
Yeah, it's a good question though. Right now, there's really not a regional approach to this. Obviously, it's pretty severe. So, but if that down the road comes to a regional approach, would that affect us? I know pretty much all of my campers come from the Grand Rapids area, which is a county south. But we also get people from Chicago and Detroit, so that could impact us in the future. So that's a really good question and something we'd want to look at.
I definitely think Kendall hit the nail on the head there we're governed by the executive order. If there's not a travel ban currently right now, then I know the state, we can't just put a travel ban for ourselves. So, but no, I don't foresee it happening. I mean, Michigan is known as a travel state, so you'll have to travel all around, up north to the UP or wherever. So, no, I don't foresee it unless there's a major executive order comes down. Then like we are building that plane, we'll be back at the same discussion on, okay, what do we do now? Some people are contingent on the south going north or vice versa. So.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's good comments because that's definitely something I hadn't thought of. Just a quick update. We will build that part of the COVID-19 page on mParks. Tina will build a campground component to that page, and we'll upload any materials in this recording to that. So just for anybody that's on the phone, just keep your eyes peeled. We'll be able to get that stuff uploaded. I know it takes Tina a little bit of time once we get off these calls and as people start peppering her with information to upload to get it all done. But that's one thing we will continue to do with each one of these conversations is build out a best practices page on that COVID-19 mParks page that people can go to. So I don't know if there's anybody else on the line that wants to type in a question or has a question or wants to be unmuted to ask the panel a question or make a comment. Now would be the time to do that. We're going to try to hold this to within an hour, and we're pushing about 45 minutes right now. So if there's any Q&A that anybody has, we can entertain that at this time.
Well, Clay, I've got something. One of the things I wanted, this is Sue Ann. is, and Jeff let me know that the facts on the website changed for voting. So just so, I mean, is everyone aware now that voting is not to be, I mean, statewide, it sounds like, you know, people are waiting to put their boats in on, so at our park, we've got a lot of residents that live around the lake, and our boat launch is closed right now. It's, you know, the campground. So we're not reopening that until May, but I'm not sure where people, I mean, we'll get more and more calls, I guess, when it stops snowing more so, but when it's a nice day, I had a few calls or emails about what's happening with boating. And then also with playgrounds, like at people's parks, even now, I mean, I'm assuming people have closed their playgrounds or encourage people not with signage, but what are other people doing doing with playgrounds? We have, ours are in the parks that are closed right now. So we don't really have that as a big issue, but that to me seems like definitely if people have like a cleaning list for the playground, that would be great. I know I've seen playground companies recommending, you know, the cleaning of their equipment. I think it was Mid-State I received something from, but so I wondered what people were doing with that. So playgrounds and boating.
Yeah, let's answer the boating question first. And there's definitely plenty of people on this panel right now that can speak to that. The new governor's order came out, said no motorized boating, that kayaking, canoeing, and anything non-motorized was still going to be okay. I saw an interesting report from Google the other day that broke down Michigan counties but the usage in their parks. And Macomb County had 106% increase. And don't quote me on this, and I may sound like an ignorant fisherman, but I think that corresponded with potentially the walleye opener on the Detroit River or Lake St. Clair. I'm not sure. That's what somebody told me. So they felt like that information was coming from the increase in boats and people getting out on the water. So I don't know if someone wants to speak to the boating piece, and then we can also speak to the playground piece.
Yeah, I just want to clarify with the boating piece itself. Just so you know, jet skis, motorboats, or other comparable watercraft are prohibited. And that means the electrical motors as well are out on the water. But keep in mind, canoes, sailboats, and kayaks are allowed. So a lot of people are not realizing that people are putting like little electrical motors on their boats and going out. That too is also prohibited and can't be done. So that's just summing up the boating itself right now. So I know that the state of Michigan, they have frequently asked questions on there. And I know that's been a major hot topic, especially over this weekend, on how it's being enforced. Our staff is doing the best we can. We have COs making spot checks as well on those sites as well and trying to be more informative instead of enforcing. You know, we're trying to let them know, hey, until this stay-at-home order is lifted, this is what we're trying to enact at our boating access sites. But just keep that in mind. You know, we can't just say boats in general because we are getting those sailboats out there and those canoes and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, we have an interesting scenario on the Muskegon River in Newaygo there at Henning County Park. It's steelhead and trout season and the guys are out fishing, but at the same time, that's our emergency access.
the hand launching access to kayaks, canoes. If you have a rowboat that you can hand launch, you could put it in at that facility. But if we didn't block that launch, I know a lot of people would still be utilizing it, and I don't want that to lead to a closure of the entire park and using the park for other purposes. So we've gotten a lot of negative feedback for blocking that launch, but I feel like doing that and also taking a little of the weight off the shoulders of your sheriff's officers or conservation officers or those folks, that now can take that one off their list and they don't need to go try to talk to the people putting boats in at that specific location. You know, if we can mitigate that a little bit, then that's less of a burden and less contact that they have to have currently. We did have a plan in place to open a lot of our boat launches that were within our campgrounds, and obviously that has now been put on hold. So we did, when we closed and sent letters out regarding our campgrounds not opening as scheduled, we had sent along with our letters that, well, our campground's not going to open, but our boat launch will. And now we've had to go back and say, well, neither one are going to open anymore.
Okay, Sue Ann had a two-piece question, and the other one was regarding the playgrounds, which were some of the first to fall. Obviously, when the executive orders started to come out, many of you were already starting to section off or put snow fence around them or just specific signage. Any more on her specific question as it related to the playgrounds or play structures within your day use parks or your campgrounds?
Our campgrounds are, they're gated currently, but we do have a lot of people parking at the gates and walking in. So we did start last week to go in and fence all of our playgrounds or put caution tape up around all those playgrounds, even though the park itself currently is closed. We are encouraging, even on our social media, to go park at the gates and go out for a walk and practice social distancing and continue to utilize the park, even though the camping's not open. So by encouraging people to walk through the campground, we felt we needed to block off access to those playgrounds.
You're muted, Jim.
Am I back?
Yep, there we got you.
So and I think everybody's probably done similar, that they've signed and caution taped or fenced off your playgrounds. But we have not opened our campgrounds. But we do have a day use park that's also a campground. And so we've had to do, mark everything off and block everything off and put signs. And we can share our signage too, if anybody would like to see what we put up too.
So I have one other question here as we're getting towards the end of an hour that just came in. It says, we're getting some pressure to open May 1st from our county administration. Is anyone else attempting to open before the DNR date of May 15th? Not sure who that came from, but you guys want to take a crack at that?
Well, I'd say Newaygo County is planning on opening most of our parks on May 3rd. And that's mostly because a lot of what needs to be done for preseason openings been completed before the order was put in place. And then I received guidance from our emergency services folks to move forward with getting those water samples that are required to be done completed. So with those two things being done, if staff starts May 1st, we could be open, and we plan to be open on that Sunday. We do have another park, however, we're not doing spring cleanup in because it didn't get done before the order came out. So that one we're going to wait a whole nother week after that. So I think it really depends on where you're at with your properties, and of course, if we have other guidelines that may limit that as well, we may push it back even further. But right now we're kind of looking at May 3rd, but they may change.
And I know some of the other aren't even scheduled to be open until Memorial Holiday. I don't know, Jeff, did you have a response to that at all?
We do have some that are scheduled to open before the state parks. We actually operate a couple of rustic campgrounds that are located within state game areas, and those we could open by May 1st. Those are fee pipe collection areas. We'll go back to kind of the contact point. We are going to install hand sanitizers next to all those fee pipes at our rustic campgrounds, so that's a mitigation measure there. But those are vault toilets, and as long as the health department says we can open the vault toilets and have people pay through a fee pipe, they could start camping right away on the 1st at those locations. Our largest campground is scheduled to open May 8th. And that's because we have a lot of returning staff, and we'll have those water tests done, and those grounds will be prepared at that one, where we're taking more of the May 15th approach at some of our other parks that need a little bit more preseason maintenance. So like Nick was saying, it really depends on where you're at today on how quickly you might be able to open if there's no additional extension.
Very good. Well, I went through the list of questions, I believe, that we had kind of preloaded from some of the folks that were asking. And then certainly have had a few come in through the chat box that Tina's been sending to me. With the next 10 minutes, I don't know if there's just some general roundtable sharing that anybody wants to provide, or anything that's going on specific in your area, and that might be for the good of the group. But the thing that we hope out of some of these webinars is that this starts to connect people again a little bit more, and maybe could continue some conversations outside of a mParks webinar, but just through your functionality to chat using your membership system. If you're using the chat functions or the group message functions within our software system, that's great too. But it's just really an opportunity for you all to share some of your expertise, and there's some experts on the phone too that aren't part of the panel. So if there's any other comments or anything for the good of the group, please feel free to get those out now. I don't see any other questions from the public or from the participants on the phone coming in. So anything to wrap it up? Scott, anything more from the state that maybe would be good knowledge to have?
No, the one thing is, I'm glad you're going to have Tina gather all this stuff. We do have some potential signage that has been approved all the way up to the governor's office and stuff that we can possibly put that on there as well, like for our boating access sites, for some trails and social distancing things that we kind of ran through the whole entire approval process. So I'll definitely send those over to you. Then anything else that we have on how we plan on managing this, the motorized boats and stuff like that, we have some signage for that as well. And then certain ways how we're going to go about possibly, redesigning the boating access site with some barrels and stuff like that might be coming out as well too. So we'll send that out. We'll put that with Tina and all that stuff. So you guys have all that information that we're currently working on within our offices. So
great. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the group of any of the panelists? Anybody else? Sue Ann on the phone. I'm not generally a free-for-all kind of guy, but if anybody's got anything they want to share, please do at this point.
Well, I have something I want to share.
Oh, go ahead, Sue Ann.
Oh,
hello. Go ahead.
Hello. Oh, well, somebody else is coming on. I just wanted to thank for putting this together. I mean, it was great for just short notice. I mean, it was just turned into a couple of conversations with some other people that are on this panel, and then Clay, and Tina, thank you, because the turnaround was so fast, and as we all know, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and I really appreciate the efforts put together for with mParks, and also I'm glad Scott came on board. I mean, it really helped to have a state insight, and then I'm just thrilled. So thanks a lot, Clay, to you. I just wanted to do that before everyone hung up.
Thanks, Sue Ann.
Going back to
that
you.
very much. No, glad to do it. There is a lot of moving parts, you're right, and getting people kind of organized sometimes as you guys are organizing your staff and the unknowns. We're doing the same thing at the mParks office. We're just trying to provide as much service as we can to keep you guys connected, to keep you all talking, to be able to, like Kendall said, be that clearinghouse of information. So if anybody has signage, like Scott said, if anybody has documents or anything that you're working with your comes down from your health department, or anything that comes down from your HR or anything like that, do not be afraid to share it with us. I mean, we can only build a great toolkit based on the information you all provide. So if there's information that someone's doing that's really unique and creative, get it to us. We'll get it on our web. We'll make sure people know it's there. So anything else from anybody on the panel? Okay, I do not see any other questions come in at all. So just a few minutes shy of an hour. Good job, gang. Just about 55-minute meeting. That's a good one. I didn't have to make anybody stand up. We'll go ahead and thank you to all the folks that were able to jump on and show their smiling faces. Thank you for the other 40 people that called in. We ended up having about 40 people on the call, which I think is a fantastic turnout. We appreciate it. Keep the lines of communication open. Let us know if we can do anything else for you at this time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, gang.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great month.